I think people really are drawn to screen printing. It's a slow, time-consuming process, but it's a very worthwhile process. You know that that piece was hand-created, you know, and there's been a lot of time and craft going into it. I like anything to do with horror, sci-fi. I was a child of the 80s, so I grew up with a lot of amazing films. That is one of my defining memories. With my dad in the video store, looking at all the videos with the, you know, gruesome looking box art, that's sort of hand-painted things, these amazing, amazing visions that generally were not that consistent with the actual film. But you know, it got your imagination going. Anything that had a hint of craziness about it, I wanted to watch. One I can never get out of my head is Army of Darkness. I remember asking my dad, okay, what's this film about? This looks amazing. This guy's got a chainsaw in his hand. There's just all this chaos happening around him. When I finally got to watch the film, I was really disappointed. I've got to be honest. I don't know why, it did not excite me as much as that box art had all those years before. And that's essentially what I drew on for my artwork, for just inspiration. But it was incredibly boring for a long time. Like the last 10 years or so, it was just bland. DVD boxes, boring. Pretty much boring. A lot of photography. If it was interesting, it was because it was a slipcase that came off and was, to some people, disposable, you know. I think the last thing that excited me in box art was like, when the first tin case one came out, I was like, oh, it's shiny, you know. Apart from that, or embossed, apart from that, it's kind of dull, you know. Big, bold fonts, a photo of some sort that is the film, you know. It's not interesting. But I think that's starting to change a bit. I think there's been a real renaissance in, coming off the back of gig posters, you know, we're getting into this real renaissance of movie posters. With gig posters, it's because you don't necessarily want to buy the CD anymore. You're either going to buy a t-shirt or a poster, or a CD if you really want to have that CD. But a lot of people don't bother. They'd rather spend their money on a piece of art to go on the wall. I think we're probably finding the same thing with movies. Like, I'd rather spend what, $50 or whatever on a poster to put on my wall than buy the DVD, watch it once, and then think, oh, it's on Netflix now, I'll just watch it there instead. Such amazing stuff's been created. You've got all these art shows happening with, like, you know, a tribute to this film or that film. You know, some officially licensed, some not. But either way, we're seeing this amazing influx of fantastic artwork all over the world. Some of these pieces will go for thousands on eBay. It's turned into a real collector's world. It's really, you know, it's become really important. As far as film art I've done, they've pretty much all been done through Dark City Gallery. First thing we did was The Thing, and that was great because it's one of my favourite films. I just drew a insane alien monster that was taking elements from all the monster versions in the film into one, and a fairly bad likeness of Kurt Russell in there that I cringe to look at now. But it was the best I could do at the time. This was maybe about 3 years ago now. And then after that I did The Fly. I think if you know The Fly, it's quite obvious what it is. But otherwise it just looks kind of grotesque. And that was a nice one to do though. I think my favourite though was Friday the 13th. We wanted to have a lot of fun with the fact that you've got this silhouette, someone holding the knife, you know, quite ambiguous, much like the film is about who the killer is. But then we got all these little subtle hints to what's going on. Got his mask there, just subtly there. And then the best part was in the middle of the lake, we got these little ripples. And I was like, will anyone pick up on that? I wonder. And obviously the idea is that it's the bit where his hand busts out at the end. And yeah, people picked up on it. I was so happy about that. And following on from that was Halloween. It's got the same stillness that the Friday the 13th one had. It's essentially just a big picture of a house. Like that's kind of what it is. But that house is so iconic in the film. But of course we've got Michael just down in the corner subtly. For me, especially in my growing up and my finding out about these films and Dracula and understanding vampires and the mythology and all that, Nosferatu is something that was always at the start of that look, the sort of the pale, weird nose and long face, bald head, shoulders up. It's just sort of to me, that is what a vampire is. It was an interesting film to tackle. At first I was thinking, oh well, it's got to be him looming over like this big black shadow with eyes and just features. But that didn't really seem, that seemed really cheap, like a really cheap route to take. And I didn't want to do something that was too harsh or too dark or too moody. It had to be black and grey. I tried throwing in some colour there, and it just kind of came off as cheap. Like it wasn't being true to the source material. But I wanted to get I wanted to get everything in there that I could. There's a real art to knowing how to make a screen print. The screens are using emulsion. You expose the separate colour layers onto these screens, and you put them down in your frame to literally push the ink through the squeegee onto the paper. So you'll end up with a piece of paper with just the lightest grey on it, for example. You do, let's say, 100 of them, put them aside to dry. Get your next screen ready, which has the next colour layer on it, and then you're pushing down the second layer. So, for example, with this print, the second grey, and then you've got to let them all dry again. And repeat the process 2 more times with something like this with 4 colours. And then you've got to let them dry and crop them all up. With an edition, it's important because they were all printed on that day. Or those 2 days. That's it, they're done. The screens that you printed on they're blasted off, the emulsion's taken off. That edition is what was printed all in one go. I think that definitely sort of adds some allure to it. That that someone can't just print off another 10 copies. That number is how many there are. There's 100 of this print, and you're one of 100 people to have it. And I got the chance to do the Wicker Man print not long ago. Obviously we had the rights from Studio Canal to do it, and it's now going to be on the Blu-ray for it coming out, which is insane. Like to be the Blu-ray steel tin box, which is great, for such an amazing film, it just blows my mind. It definitely takes it to a different level. Nice artwork on the front cover of something like that, definitely it pushes it into a different world. And also the fact it is artwork, it's not a photo, it's 2D artwork that was originally a screen print. It's now on a DVD cover. It might seem like a small thing to some people, but to me this is amazing. It's definitely something I always really enjoyed as a kid, so it's really nice to be back there. And I'd like to think that some kids looking at my artwork going, hey, that's really good, I wonder what that film's about.